Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we open with that conversation between Dakota and Teddy. I thought it was so interesting because he kind of was like, oh, so like you saved Morgan because you thought it would kind of give you this new lease on life, that you kind of would live with him, and that basically she'd almost feel that empty hole inside of her, like, but because she's never been able to find a place to call home. Like, no matter how, like, what he was doing is actually something Dakota's done time and time and time and again, and no matter what places she built, she never felt at home. She never felt like herself. And so Teddy talks about the fact is that this is actually where she belongs. It's like because you found someone that will accept you as yourself. Because if you stayed with Morgan, you basically would have had to become what he wants you to become. Because he would have kind of make you hold yourself to certain standard and stuff like that. Which that theme and aspect kind of resonates a lot in this episode, especially with Strand. But we'll get to that soon enough. But it is this thing of like, you know, here you get to be whatever you want to. Granted, you know, the new world, you know, yeah, Alicia is special in the regards of the new world is, the beginning of this new world is going to need someone like her, but it's not going to need, conclusions like us. So we're going to die. And she's like, oh, the rest of your people know. It's like, oh yeah, they've all known that they're going to die. She's like, but how do you do that? It's like, it's easy to get people to follow you. All you have to do is kind of give them, you know, you have to just offer them what they really want. Getting them to die for you is kind of a whole other thing. At the end of the day, to do that, all you have to do is be willing to die with them. Because wanting to die isn't easy. I mean, it makes sense because we actually think about it like that's the body's natural reaction to like wanting to die. It's like it does everything it can to fight. Like that's why, like if you were to drown or whatever, like if you for whatever reason, not trying to like get this like deep and dark, but it's like, you know, that's why your body will naturally fight. Like if you try to like drown yourself or something, your body will be like, no, just because it's just not a natural reaction. It's not natural, so your body does everything it can for self-preservation. Your body's built that way. So it's almost kind of like that mentality he's creating. So, and obviously we're cutting back to like Morgan and him kind of leading the charge. Obviously Riley comes in, and Riley's the reason why Teddy's able to do all that he can do, because Teddy was the one that was aboard the ship. We never actually got answers to why, like, some of them are, well, how they all end up dying. Because some of them have bullet wounds in their head. So I'm like, it's like, because he says like, oh yeah, I found Riley and he was broken. And I'm like, is that why all those people are dead? Are they crew members he killed before he left? I mean, they've probably been planning this for a while. I wonder how the key got away from it in the first place. Maybe the other person that had the key managed to escape and just somehow, some way. I mean, that's probably like a mule probably hunted down that person who had the key and was bringing it back until like he got hired. Like, I guess it's like he was already on a job, but it's like, I'm going to go ahead and do this job for Virginia hunting down Morgan. Granted, didn't work out the way he thought it would, so. But I think that's so fascinating. Like, you know, I guess he thought he could do a 2-for-1. Like I said, I'm in the middle of this. It would be easy to kind of take care of that on the way. But he was probably supposed to meet up with Teddy and them, Teddy's people, so he was probably like, I got nothing better to do. I got some time to waste before I need a rendezvous. Maybe it's like a specific date or whatever. Like they were supposed to meet up. So maybe that's where that came into play. But cause we don't know who had the key beforehand. Like we just know where it ended up at the beginning of this season. And that's around, Emil's neck. But, so I guess like in preparation for this, Riley went ahead and killed everyone maybe after the fact. I mean, who knows how long some of them were dead, you know? So, but obviously it's like, all right, we're going to have to go in there. Like, obviously we don't know if none of the people are necessarily here. So what we need to do is we need to go down below. We need to basically shut down these machines, like the weapon, the missiles and stuff like that. Because it was like everyone came together for this. Even, because obviously he, like, you know, Strand gave them all the heads up. And it's like, all right, we're going in there. Which I wasn't expecting that. But it's like, they go inside, and Morgan kind of wanted to be the only one who goes in there. Everyone else was going to back him up, but Grace wasn't going to let him go down there alone. And they have the conversation about, you know, Athena, and she's like, no, this isn't the time. He's like, if this isn't the time, then I don't know what is. And she's like, what are you talking about? Because like for him, it's like, doing what's necessary here. He's like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it out. She's like, yes, you are. He's like, I need you to survive. You need to go off and live. You know, you're here for a reason. Like, go make that world Athena showed you in that dream. Because for Morgan, he feels like he can't be that person. Because he's reading the note over and over again that Dakota left of, right, you don't know me, I saved you. I heard you on the radio. I saved you because you still have things left to do. And I think for him, he talks about it a little bit. He felt like this is the last thing he can do. Make sure that everyone survives. Because everyone ends up ultimately coming down. But obviously, he wants to go into the room because there's supposed to be like 150 members of the crew. So Morgan's like, all right, I'm going to go through. You guys will kill whatever it's left. And it's just like, wait, well, you're not going in there by yourself. It's like, yes, I am. Because for him, it's like, I'm not letting anyone to die. It's like, well, we're not going to let you die either. And just for Morgan, because it's, once again, it's that interesting hero's plight where, like, Morgan in particular, he doesn't think he deserves their loyalty or their love. Like it's a weird thing. At the very least, we don't even have necessarily say love, but I think they do love Morgan. They care for him because they are a family. But for him, it's like, no. Don't, like, follow me down. You know, it's like, this needs to be my path, and I'm not going to let any of you sacrifice yourselves for this. And the reasoning for that, interestingly enough, I think there's a lot of elements of why this is happening for Morgan. Because, for one, he blames himself because he's like, I've led these people down dead-end roads time and time again. Like, kind of took charge a little bit in season 4, then throughout season 5, like every bump in the road, like I led them there. I led to the whole Virginia thing. Now I'm leading you here too. It's like I'm not leading you in good directions, and it's like, this is the least I can do. If I die in the process, then so be it. You know. He doesn't want to. I mean, the argument could be maybe on some level Morgan does want to die. Because for him, it's better for me to die than someone else. It's that complex of, like, seeing that, like, yeah, my life isn't as valuable as other people's life, but obviously for other people, your life is valuable, you know? And there was also this thing, you know, where June was like, just give, you know, Grace some time, you know? And he kind of nods, but it's like, right, all 3 of them know that pain. Technically 4 when you include John, because obviously that's like, you know, John Sr., I should specify, but it's like, yeah, they all know what it's like to have lost a child. John's circumstances are complicated. So June and Morgan kind of have a similar story, not the same, but obviously, like, Grace has, you know, each one of them's got their own experience. It's not a one for one, but one of them knows what it's like to have lost a child, you know, sadly. So, but despite everything, they decided, you know, they're going to keep going further. And obviously, they end up talking to Teddy. I love the moment John Sr. got on the radio. It was like, he started stressing because he was like, oh, like, the past isn't just in the past. Like, hearing that, like, oh, that's you, Sheriff Dory. It's like he didn't like it made him, because I think it took him back to that point of being locked up again. It's just kind of like, right, your jailer is there finding you, and he's like, no, I should have put a bullet in your head. I'm not gonna make that mistake again. I'm gonna take you down, you know. But obviously he talks about the fact that Alicia's far, far away from this. And in that moment, it's like, wait, you're willing to kill your own people? He's like, yeah, like, the fact is, because it's like, oh, you thought being on a submarine you'd be safe and stuff like that. And it's like, wait, you're willing to kill your own people? And yes, because he believes in this that much, that the world needs to kind of be wiped clean. So Morgan ends up going on his own, and Victor follows him after. Even though Morgan was trying to shut the door so that he could go on alone, Victor kind of squeezed on through. Because, you know, he's like, why are you doing this, Victor? It's like, are you what are your reasons for this? He's like, Alicia asked me if I'm doing this all for myself or everyone. He's like, I'm doing this for everyone, you know? Which Morgan's like, all right, if you say so, if you claim so. But like for him, like I brought up earlier, he's trying to make it, in his mind, it's like he's got to make it up to everyone. And if that means sacrificing himself, so be it, to protect them. So obviously they come across Walker that's radioactive, but there's also others behind the door radioactive. It's a shortcut to get there, but they'd have to go through a whole bunch of radioactive Walkers to get there. And like going through it, it's like he'd have maybe a couple days afterwards. And obviously it's not enough time for him, but it's also like they have little time. They got to, like, they're already powering up the sub and everything. So, but Victor suggests another route. He's not trying to let Morgan sacrifice himself. They come across so many dead crew members, but at the end, you know, Morgan was like, all right, at the very least, we can go back and maybe we can stop this. But Victor won't let him. He's like, you want to make sure no one dies? I'll find it. And so I wasn't 100% sure what Victor was trying to do. I was like, I guess, like, he was going to leave Morgan to deal with it himself. Well, he seemed like he was going to go try and, like, stop all of it himself, but he was going to leave Morgan to... I don't know. At the very least, maybe he was going to... Like, the way Morgan puts it later on, it's like, right, you were just going to let Alicia... You wanted to survive so you can let Alicia know that you played the role of a hero. So you were going to kind of, like... So I don't think he was going to be all about, like, nah, like, he probably did that to leave... Like, you'll deal with all of that, Morgan. And, like, he was just going to bounce. I don't know. Like, someone in the comments will correct me on, but I wasn't really clear on what Victor was necessarily trying to do. Was he just going to bail? It's like, well, I got this weapon and I'm just going to bail. Or was he actually going to try and play the role of the hero, but that's only because he wanted to kind of take all the glory for himself. It's like, Morgan kind of dies in the process. So what? But I'm gonna come out looking all, like rainbows and unicorns. I'm like, yeah, I'm the best. Because Alicia's the only person that's left that knows him from before. Not necessarily before, but when things were kind of at the beginnings and stuff like that. They've been through so much together. 3 seasons, which obviously we don't know what that necessarily means time frame wise, like year wise or whatever, but they've been through a lot. Strand's her only connection to, like, the OG crew. Well, Daniel as well, but Daniel's not, like, he wants Alicia, like, Daniel's belief and everything he doesn't need. It's like, Daniel's always going to feel a certain way about me, but, like, Alicia thinking of him in a certain way bothers him, because it's like, after all they've been through, all that Madison kind of did for him as well, so it's like, he wants her to look at him in a more positive light. Once again, he's kind of like, Daniel's a lost cause. Like, he's never going to look at me fully in a positive light. We also don't know, like, what those interactions have been like when Daniel's been staying with Victor and them in the town and everything. We don't know what that necessarily looks like. But obviously, Dakota shows up. And for her, she's like, it's like, she's like, because, Victor tried to talk to her. It's like, don't make the same mistake you did when you shot John. And she's like, I didn't make a mistake. And then she goes on the radio. It's like, right, I guess not everyone knew that already, that she was the one that saved Morgan. But it's like, right, I saved Morgan. And the fact of the matter is that, and he did, like, obviously I wanted, I'm the reason why he's here and everything. But I got part of what I wanted, because June ended up servicing that being the case. But for her, it's like, the fact is, if I'd stay with you, I would have had to pretend to be someone I'm not. And at the very least, if I die here with all of this, I get to die being myself and never having to change or adapt to be. And it's like, Victor's like, it's not like that. And she's like, do you want to become who Morgan wants you to be? And that's the case. Victor likes who he is. Yes, because he's always had to change himself for other people, rather than being able to just be himself. Everyone from Madison to Allison to Nick to a certain extent, because he was kind of trying to make Nick be okay with who he was, but it's like everyone's always tried to, like, demonize him for being who he is. So there's a little bit of a connection between him and I mean, hell, like, her shooting and killing John. I mean, you can make the argument it's no different from Victor shooting Daniel in the face, which, he kind of apologized for that and kind of made up for it. But that's also the complicated thing of, no matter what Victor does, he kind of won't change, Like, every time he's in he does the thing. Like, if I had to compare him to any character, it'd be like John, because I referenced him recently because he was in last week's episode of Kung Fu. But it's the fact is that Victor is like John Murphy, where it's like, he can have moments of doing the right thing, but then other times he's just a self-preserving D-bag of the group, and he's flipped that role back and forth so many times. It's just like, eventually you were legitimately this world's version of the boy who cried wolf. It's like, okay, we believed you time and time again, Victor. What's the point of us believing you anymore? Even to the point that Morgan showed up before, because basically Dakota's like, this new world doesn't need assholes like you, Victor. But luckily Morgan showed up to save him. I mean, granted, he just got shot in the arm. Another person she was just about to shoot. She did, like, seem like she had some reservations about pulling the trigger. Because maybe, like, when she looks at Victor, she sees a lot of herself too much, like the whole Teddy thing. But he and Morgan just knocked out, and it's like, to be fair, whatever your circumstances, like that shit you just pulled, we're going to talk about that later, but we got to stop Teddy. So obviously it's like they're swiping through all the cards he got off all of those dead crewmates, and they're your boy Victor trying to always doing his greatest skill, spinning everything with that silver tongue of his. And the fact is, it's like, oh, like if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't. He's like, just shut up, Strand, and let me do this. And they're swiping, but by the time they get in there, the missile, at least one of the missiles, it wasn't all 10, at least one of them fired. So granted, they don't know where it's going though, and like Riley's upset because it's like, right, only one fired, but Teddy's like, oh, it's enough to get things started. It's like there's a multitude of targets. It's like maybe it's that little town you've kind of been making. We don't know, but the fact is, he's like, I get it, Morgan. I was just like you at one point in time. He's like, he had his mission on how he thought things were going to end, how things were going to turn out, but for him, it's like it wasn't the end. And the fact is, don't think of this as an ending, Morgan. Kind of basically think of it as a new beginning. In that moment, like, Morgan just kind of lets him live because I guess it's just not worth it at this point in time. Killing him is not going to do anything. So, besides, they also need him probably so they can follow him back to find Alicia. That might be an angle to it. So, him and Riley get let go. I think that's another angle to this. But obviously, what upsets Morgan, it's like, it is just one missile, and Victor's like, well, we made sure it wasn't a lot worse. He's like, I could have gotten here a lot sooner if it wasn't for you. You know, it's just like, go. You know, your selfishness got in the way again, and just, like always, he kind of walks away with his tail between his legs. Kind of like, yeah, you could say you did your best, Victor, but was it really your best? Or would you just, you know, so, obviously, this is a very dire situation. Once again, we don't know where the target is. Only they know, and they weren't going to give that information up. It's like, so what are they going to do? And it's like, that thing's in the air. Because part of me is wondering, is Morgan going to try and redirect it? Like, there are the controls and everything. I mean, that might have just been for firing another missile, but I'm assuming it's like you'll be able to control where it is. But it's going to have to land somewhere. So we might be kind of in a situation kind of similar, like, because Arrow was in a situation like this where, like, Felicity, I'm going all over the place, like, referencing other stuff, but it kind of, like, that town Monument, like, she ended up having to choose somewhere to land it because it was already in the air. Like, you had to pick a place, so they might be in that situation of like, where are we going to dictate it? Because no matter where this goes, it's going to be enough ripples that like it's going to hit nearby places no matter where we shoot it. So, I mean, its coordinates are probably already locked in. They did talk about it being locked in, so there's probably no manual override to it. Maybe there is. Who knows? So it's going to be interesting to see how that, you know, ultimately plays out. I'm also curious to see what June and John Sr. are going to do, because after Dakota's proclamations on the speaker and everything, and John and June looked at each other, I guess June hadn't told him she's the one who shot, you know, and now it's also like, right, you're running with Teddy. The fact is, she's still above. I mean, she was knocked out, not less. Teddy and Riley found her and brought her back, but potentially she's still on the boat. So it's like, what are they going to do about that? Like, what's going to happen to her? So many questions. Because there's also the interesting thing. Let's not forget, like, Al is out, you know, checking on, like, the Republican stuff like that, like, how they're responding to this situation. Not much they could potentially do. It's just interesting to think about, like, what are the, I mean, no one else knows what's necessarily going on right now, but it's like, I mean, what can anyone do anything about this? Because, like I said, I was thinking maybe redirect it to the sub, but someone's going to have to stay behind to sacrifice himself, and Morgan's probably thinking to be that person himself. I don't know. Grace probably won't let him, so it's kind of, you know, I mean, to be fair, Morgan was in that vision of the future too, but the argument probably is like, well, Athena was as well. But so not everything's going to be a one for one. But because for Morgan, it's like it all has to matter. It has to mean something. You know, it can't just be, you know, just as like, you know, Dakota was saying, like for John was saying, like, yeah, there has to be a meaning for it all. Like, it can't just all be meaningless. And the sad thing is, I think even John's death kind of led to a lot of stuff that, you know, his life did have meaning, because regardless of like all that he was able to do, because let's not forget, because it's not just Dakota he owes his life, he owes John his life. Before even all that whole thing with Dakota, like long before then was John saving him in season 4. So it's like, I owe him a lot and I'm here because of him. So, and John says, I kind of nothing, you know, even in death, I think that was a thing to kind of motivate and push certain things along, that it maybe this is the way things are meant to be, meant to play out, you know. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see where everything takes us. Next week's episode is the season finale, so it's going to be really interesting to see like where we go. Like, this is like the most dire of dire circumstances. Like, how do you deal with this? Like, what, and how is this going to play out? What is going to be the aftermath of it all? We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.